for our rants and raves of the week. All right, I'm going to start with Dan.
I have a rant for the A.H. Belo Company of Texas, which is reportedly on the verge of selling the Providence Journal to Gatehouse Media, a large out-of-state chain. We've been down this road many times before. Reportedly, Go Local Prov, which broke the story, has reported that there may very well have been some local people who wanted to buy the paper. Maybe they didn't bid as much money, and you know, it's all about money. But it looks like Gatehouse is going to move in. Inevitably, cuts follow, and the community isn't served. I think it's really a shame.
That's too bad. All right, who's next?
Want me to jump in? I'll jump in. I think.
Callie.
I'm next? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I have a rave for Paul Farhi of the Washington Post. They could stand some good news these days. He wrote a piece about Jared and Amanda Miller. This is the young Nevada couple that sprayed down people. They were clearly anti-government, whatever. And he made the point that if you just use the elements attached to themselves, everybody would call them a terrorist, except newspapers didn't. And he pointed out, he did a little survey of newspapers around the country where they went out of their way, anti-government, but not terrorists. And that when terrorist is used, it's usually associated with someone who is a Muslim. Not a Muslim, not called a terrorist. This is an issue that we as journalists have to pay very close attention to. And language is very important. That's where we stand. And we got to understand that that is a huge bias. I mean, his first line says it all. What do you call a couple who espouse an extremist anti-government ideology, killed 2 policemen and a bystander while draping one of their victims in a flag associated with a political movement? Now, come on. Any newspaper, if that was a Muslim, they'd be called a terrorist. Okay.
You know, it's and we've just gone through the period about negotiating with terrorists because we have freed 5 Taliban leaders for Bergdahl. There's a real question about whether the Taliban leadership are terrorists. I mean, this was their country that was being invaded when they rose up and fought. But we call them that. So I think it makes your point.
What do you got, Tom?
Well, this is sort of a lament. I feel like I do dirges all the time here. But Time Magazine this week was spun off, or Time Inc. was spun off from the Times Mirror Corporation, and which essentially said 95% of the profit that the former corporation made is going in one direction, and the 5% that is just bleeding money is going to be out on its own. It reminds me of the Eskimo, the death where you put the aging person on the ice floe and push them out, and Time will take care of that. 23 of the last 26 quarters, Time Magazine has lost revenue. It has lost readership. It has lost time spent, and it has gotten to the point where it's just thin, and it's rather painful to see what was a great American institution become a thin bunch of little paper.
All right, Roy, what do you got?
Well, I'm a Broadway fanatic, have been for a long time, and I always watch the Tony Awards. And this year, I watched the Tony Awards. Didn't really realize until it hit me afterwards that this was the first year that they had left out their In Memoriam.
Oh yeah.
And this was a program where they had some amazing losses, some terrible losses. I just had a partial list here. Julie Harris, who won 6 Tonys. Philip Seymour Hoffman, James Gandolfini, Mickey Rooney, Maya Angelou, who was mentioned elsewhere, but not in Memoriam, and then all the people that are not from that are not from the acting side. Mitch Lee, who was listed on that, is the composer of Man of La Mancha. So all of the people who are behind the scenes. It was CBS's choice to not run this. It was 2.5 minutes, and instead they had Hugh Jackman jumping.
All right, well, I have a rant for the columnist Michelle Malkin. It's one thing to have an opinion about the president's immigration policy. She doesn't like it. But she had this column that was based largely on rumor and a tip, saying that illegal aliens, as she referred to them, were being transported through Hanscom Air Force Base, which is why I'm dealing with it, because they're in our own backyard. She had a number of facts wrong. Today, Hanscom Air Force Base put out a press release clarifying and disputing some of the essence of her column. She used the statement, to verify or to validate what she had reported about it. Just kind of, meanwhile, it got spread all over these, websites and, conspiracy theory websites. And anyway, that's the end of that.